Jake Tapper wouldn't know what journalism is if it literally slapped him in his face. He doesn't do journalism, okay? He's an actor who reads off a teleprompter and pretends to be a journalist. A real journalist would pore over the Epstein files, including the leaked Epstein emails, to figure out, okay, what really was behind Epstein?
You've been talking to Iranians on the ground about the strikes and about Iranian leadership going forward. How do the Iranians you're talking to, how do they see the future unfolding in Iran?
The responses from Iranians that I've spoken to has been overwhelmingly in favor of the United States and Israeli action on the ground. The united call from the Iranian people on the ground is that they want the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi to lead a transition government. It isn't Venezuela, it's not the same system, and you have to deconstruct that system, the IRGC, in order to have genuine change and stability.
Interesting stuff.
Oh, it's interesting stuff. Well, what's actually interesting is the fact that the woman you all just heard from is no Iranian expert. In fact, Emily Schrader is a hardcore Zionist who is married to a former IDF soldier, lives in Israel, and works for JNS, which is an Adelson-funded media syndicate out of Israel. So why is Jake Tapper bringing her on to speak on behalf of the Iranian people who are currently being bombed to smithereens because it's something that she has been lobbying for years? That's the real question here, Jake.
Yeah, well, so there's two things here that I'm pretty livid about. One is Jake Tapper bringing on someone working for the Israelis and pretending that she's representing Iranians. So that's a massive lie on the part of Jake Tapper and CNN. So they pretend to be objective, they pretend to be journalists. Are they gonna correct that? Or are they gonna let their audience be misled into believing that she's actually helping the Iranian people? And then later I'm gonna tell you about how Jake Tapper is attacking Drop Site News as a terrorist organization.
What?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
So Jake Tapper has gone full board Israel first, no ands, ifs, or buts, and just flat out lying to his audience. And
these scumbags, honestly, they've got nothing else. All they do is label anything they don't like as terrorist or anti-Semitic. That's all they've got. They never engage on the substance of the arguments ever. They'll call you an anti-Semite, but they'll never call you wrong. Notice that. Anyway, let's get to who Emily Schrader is, because it's important for you guys to know. And by the way, something else to be very aware of. Whenever you see a retired military general giving their opinion or their expert analysis on issues of war and peace on cable news shows or network news shows, just look them up real quick and see what they're doing for income after they retired from the military, because they're either working for defense contractors or a consulting firm that consults on issues of foreign policy, usually consulting on behalf of foreign countries. Just be aware of how this propaganda game works. But on January 22nd, Emily Schrader actually disclosed something on X that everyone should be aware of. And I do appreciate her candor here, because essentially she outed herself as an Israeli spy, okay? She says, big announcement, as Iran approaches 2 weeks of a complete communications blackout, it doesn't have to remain this way. I am thrilled to announce I am part of a historic, highly confidential alliance of Israeli tech veterans, 8,200 alumni, and Iranian underground operatives. Together, we are building the digital and financial infrastructure for a G7 nation before the regime falls, starting with 2 stealth ventures that simultaneously sever the dictatorship's 2 main chokeholds, connectivity and capital. Okay, so basically, this is the kind of work that she's doing. She works for the Israeli government. And here she is on CNN speaking on behalf of the Iranians. It's just sick. So let's take a look at what she's been up to over at JNS. That's the Israeli media outlet that's funded by the Adelsons. Here's a few examples. One video. The IRGC's secret 8-year blueprint to control Iran. Pretty sure they're already controlling Iran. The case for regime change in Iran and the risks no one talks about. And the risks, of course, are about how it would be terrible if we don't attack Iran. Final video, how the Iran nuclear talks could backfire on America. Those are just some of her recent videos, but she's been putting out pro-Iran war propaganda for years. In fact, I decided to call her out on it last year. This is from June of 2025, Cenk, when I was on the Piers Morgan show. I noticed that she was gonna be on the panel. I had seen some of her pro-war propaganda, wanted to call her out on it. Take a look.
I just want to mention quickly that Emily is one of these Israelis who's going around doing propaganda tours on manufacturing consent for the United States to go to war with Iran on behalf of Israel. We can't make the same mistake that we did in Iraq. We should not go to war in Iran on behalf of Israel. If Israel wants to go to war with Iran, they should do it themselves without our military support, and that includes taxpayer dollars. Go do it on your own. Go ahead and enlist, baby girl. Go do your thing, but leave America out of it. Our men and women in our armed forces shouldn't die on behalf of your country, period.
Well, she didn't put a uniform on and she's not risking her life, but unfortunately she got her way and the US did get dragged into a war with Iran. Now, the notion that she speaks on behalf of the Iranian people is laughable to say the least, and it is shocking that Jake Tapper thought it was a good idea to have her on the show as some sort of expert who doesn't have a massive, unbelievable bias on this issue. Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, well, I don't think that that's shocking at all. I think Jake Tapper wanted a war against Iran, and he wanted it because he loves Israel. So that's not unclear. I mean, he's bringing on Israeli spies and not telling his audience. And no one thinks Emily Schrader is unbiased. And if you were a journalist, you would look into the background of the people that you brought on, right? My God, if anyone brought on someone who was connected to Hamas or Hezbollah, CNN and everybody else in the media organizations would rip their heads off, right? But they have Israeli spies on all the time. In fact, her whole job in that effort that she herself described was to trick people into believing that the Iranians were doing an uprising. And oh my God, we're doing this on behalf of the Iranians. And that's exactly why Jake Tapper brings her on, to do that propaganda that she promised in her organization. So he aids and abets her lies to the American people. And by the way, to be fair to Jake Tapper and CNN, almost all of mainstream media and cable news does this. They never tell you that the people that are on their air actually work for Israel or are part of different Israeli organizations or doing Israeli propaganda. And if you call them out on that, they would say to you, well, that is true, that is factual, but you're an anti-Semite. For saying things that are true, you should be canceled and never allowed on cable news, which makes sense, because on cable news, there's nothing but lies posing as objective journalism. Did you hear what she said? She said, now this is not like Venezuela. We are gonna have to deconstruct the regime. Well, for America, it's not in our interest to do anything but, we killed our top leaders, we killed the Ayatollah. How many, we killed our top 49 leaders, another 49, another 49, how long do we have to go? And what the Israelis want is, no, full regime change. That's why Schrader was saying that on air. And how are we gonna get the regime change, Anna? Well, we need ground troops. Now, is Israel going to send their ground troops? No way. The only people we're talking about sending ground troops right now is American ground troops. Fodder for Israel's war machine, but Jake Tapper won't tell you that. He won't tell you that Israel's not sending any ground troops. He won't tell you that Israel has pushed for this war for 20, 30 years. He won't tell you that there are no American interests in that war. There weren't any when we started, and there certainly aren't any now. He'll only tell you this pretty little lies about, oh my God, we're going to help the Iranian people. That's why Israel bombed their oil facilities and rained poison down on Tehran, right? That's why we hit a school and killed 165 school children to help Iran, right, Jake? Right? No, what a tremendous liar. But all of them, they go out there and they do propaganda for a different country day in and day out. So look, Larry Ellison's wasting his money buying CNN to turn it into an Israeli propaganda. It's already Israeli propaganda. And I guarantee you that Jake Tapper, once the Ellisons are in charge, they won't look at that and go, how embarrassing doesn't get anything right, lies to his audience, pretends to be objective when he's exact. No, they're like, perfect. They'll promote him. They'll move him up the chain into a better time slot. That's my prediction. We'll see what happens. And I promised you what Tapper said about drop site news. So drop site.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention one quick thing, because in that video that we showed you earlier, Emily Schrader is, cheerleading Reza Pahlavi as the next leader of Iran should the IRGC be toppled. And I just want to remind you all that even the president of the United States, who unfortunately was stupid enough to get dragged into this war, has said that Pahlavi doesn't actually enjoy widespread support in Iran, and he threw him under the bus. And if you don't remember, this is what I'm talking about.
It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person. But it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person.
It'd be better if it's someone who's living in Iran and actually enjoys some popularity. And by the way, he repeated similar remarks today, or actually it was yesterday. Take a look.
I would like to see people that are inside go. Now they talk about the son of the Shah, they talk about other people, but hasn't been there in many, many years.
Yeah, homeboy hasn't lived in Iran for like 47 years. He knows nothing about Iran. I'm sorry, the diaspora knows nothing about the country that they're trying to call, the shots for. I don't know anything about Armenia. I mean, I do know things about Armenia, but I would never dare speak on behalf of the Armenian people. I'm an American. But anyway, back to you, Cenk. Tell me about why Jake Tapper thinks the actual fine reporters at Drop Site are terrorists.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna get there in a second. I just wanted to say two things about Pahlavi and the situation. So has anybody on cable news ever clarified that Reza Pahlavi went to Israel already and promised that they would be great allies to Israel? Meaning, don't worry, I'll work with you. I'll do whatever you tell me, right? Nope. They've never mentioned that Reza Pahlavi is in alliance with Israel already, right? Because that would give the game away. God forbid you do the news. You don't cover the news, you cover up the news. That's the point of Jake Tapper and CNN. Okay, and this is amazing. There's now reporting. You know how Trump said, well, we don't want Pahlavi. We had 2 or 3 guys picked out. And Trump's amazing, saying that he just says those things out loud. He's not supposed to say it, but he can't help himself, right? And he said, but unfortunately, they also died in the bombing. Okay, now there's reporting out that it was not unfortunate, that Israel gave us that intelligence, and they knew that it would kill the 2 or 3 other options America had to replace the Ayatollah, because they don't want those options. They want the Shah, who's already sworn an allegiance to Israel. So they made the war much, much harder, and regime change even harder, because they insisted it's got to be the dictator that is going to serve Israel. So they killed the other options, so we don't have them anymore. But did Jake Tapper or anyone in cable news or CNN tell you that? No, they constantly bury the news, bury it. Make sure the American people don't find out. Lead them into another war and another war. Jake, you're gonna write a book afterwards, right? No one could have seen the disaster of the Iran war. Nobody could have seen it coming. Nobody could have seen that, oh my God, Israel, it turns out, gives money to 94% of Congress. Nobody knew that. Yeah, nobody knew that if you had it your way, because you're not in the news business, you're in the propaganda business. So now to Drop Site News. Drop Site News has done brilliant reporting on Epstein's emails, Larry Ellison's emails, Ehud Barak's emails, and they show that Epstein tried to help Israel over and over again, worked with the Israeli prime minister, had Israeli spies staying at his place, procured cyber weapons for Israel. Now, all that is very inconvenient for traditional media. They're like, well, God, if we told people that, then they would find out who Epstein actually worked with and worked for. So let's bury it, cover up the news, cover up the news. So then this guy on X, AG Hamilton 29, attacks Ryan Grim, the main reporter for Drop Site News, and says that Ryan Grim's terror propaganda and fake news site, they're referring to Drop Site News, denying that there were any rapes on 10/7, etc. So I don't care about the particular controversy that they're talking about here. That's for them to deal with. What I care about is then Jake Tapper takes that and goes, oh, terror website doing propaganda for all. He's like, repost.
So pathetic. So pathetic. Jake Tapper wouldn't know what journalism is if it literally slapped him in his face. He doesn't do journalism, okay? He's an actor who reads off a teleprompter and pretends to be a journalist. A real journalist would pore over the Epstein files, including the leaked Epstein emails, to figure out, okay, what really was behind Epstein? Because clearly there was more to him than a disgusting pedophile. Yes, he was a disgusting pedophile, but there was more to him than that. But here's the thing, it would be inconvenient truth for Jake Tapper to report on. So instead, he decides to stay away from that story. By the way, fun add-on to this, Cenk, is the fact that the war in Iran has been dubbed Operation Epic Fury by the Trump administration, but Americans have been calling it Operation Epstein Fury, including many right-wingers on social media. In fact, I think right-wingers are the ones who dubbed it, and it's hilarious. And now the ADL is coming out and saying that's anti-Semitic.
But wait a minute. Epstein's a random Jewish guy, right? Like Harvey Weinstein's a random Jewish guy. Are we not allowed to criticize Harvey Weinstein, who's a sick rapist? So the only reason why it could possibly be anti-Semitic is if they think the war is for Israel and Epstein worked for Israel. Oops, you just told on yourself, ADL. Okay.
Inconvenient truths. I love it when people get jealous of Jeremy Scahill and Ryan Grimm or any of the fantastic, excellent reporters that we have in this country. I love it when people are jealous.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, and last thing on that, Anna, because New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, etc., all you guys. So either prove that drop site news reporting is not true, because I don't want to report things that aren't true, right? Or prove that, or join them and say, oh my God, these are amazing. If every email of Epstein and Ehud Barak and all those guys, well, not Ehud Barak, because that's obvious, but if Epstein in every one of his interactions was trying to help Bolivia, that would be amazing news. That would be shocking news. If every interaction he's trying to help Russia or China, everyone in cable news were to report it 24/7, don't dare try to deny it, Jake. If Epstein was like, I gotta help Russia, you'd be like, oh my God, the Russians are taking over, right? He says Israel. They're like, they ignore the drop site news stories. They don't debunk them because they can't, because they are true. So instead, now Jake is calling them terror propaganda for doing accurate news reporting on his beloved Epstein and his beloved Ehud Barak and his beloved Israel. So that's the sick people that have been running national media our whole lives. Their job was to lie to you en masse while pretending to be objective. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.